You gotta make your teak look sexy.
Hi, I'm Joe, and welcome to Motor City Boat Werks. Let's get to work. Welcome back to the Boat Werks. If you're new to the channel, I have a lot of projects going on inside the Boat Werks. One of them is the pocket trawler behind me. The other one is the Skipper 20 sailboat. It's this awesome little character sailboat that I'm gonna restore and do a pilot house conversion on. You know, every day I pass by that little sailboat as I walk into the Boat Werks, and over the winter I've begun to get a little bit inspired, thinking about what I'm gonna be doing to this boat. I've got a to-do list now for the little sailboat, and I've begun to work on some of the smaller projects to kind of get things going. There's a lot to do, and I think it's time to get started. I often see questions about what to do with teak that comes off of an old boat. You want to restore it, you want to make it something a little bit better. I've done a previous episode where I talked about how to repair teak if it's cracked or it has holes in it. This episode, I thought I'd take a moment and talk about my technique for restoring teak on something like an old sailboat.
Working inside the Skipper 20 sailboat, removing all the trim so I can get it inside. We can do some refinishing on the wood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove a handful of this teak trim that's inside the Skipper 20 sailboat. And it's just a few pieces. I mean, maybe a dozen pieces or less. And I'll be able to take them back inside the shop or the art studio and kind of sand them, clean them up, and then start doing a refinish on them. I think it'll make a big difference inside the boat insofar as kind of just sprucing it up just a little bit. You know, it's a great project to kind of be doing seasons when I'm not working inside the shop for whatever reason. So we're going to go ahead and get these out of here.
It goes without saying that every piece of teak that comes off your old boat needs to be labeled in some way. It's got to be labeled so that you can remember where it goes when you put the boat back together. I've been using the same system for a number of years. I start at a central location in the boat, and then I work in a clockwise fashion, labeling pieces of wood based on the side of the boat that they come from, as well as their relative position to the deck of the boat. Pieces of teak that are joined together to create a frame or to surround something in trim, I tend to label them in a series of letters and numbers. This way, like pieces of wood are kind of grouped together by their labeling. You can come up with your own technique for labeling. The point is that you've got to mark every single piece of wood that you take off your boat, and you need to mark it in such a way that the label will be present later on when you begin refinishing the wood. You don't want to get to the point of reassembling your boat and you can't remember which piece of wood goes where. Ask me how I know.
Alright, so every boat has probably got a little bit of wood on it of some sort. Usually it's teak, especially if it's an older boat. And it'll be in a variety of different conditions. Everything from something that was once finished and is now filthy to something that may be in a little bit better condition. And you'll often see teak that is particularly dark, almost as though it's been stained from the factory, kind of giving it this kind of dark mahogany looking finish to it. What you end up having to do is figuring out how to try and get all the teak to sort of look uniform. So when you put it back on the boat, well, it kind of, everything pops and the wood looks good.
Now, I want to be clear up front that this process I'm going to be talking about is for teak from an old boat, an old sailboat. This is not the process that you use if you have a newer boat and the teak is in relatively good condition. But if you have an older sailboat, an older boat, and the teak is just kind of a mix of all sorts of poor condition wood, this is going to be the process that you might want to follow. What this really comes down to is how do you get old sailboat teak to look uniform?
I want to show you this right here. This is a piece of 1/2-inch Honduran mahogany. This is a piece of some type of raw teak. And what I want to show you is that, you know, you can clearly see, this is unfinished wood. You can clearly see there's a difference in the color and the pigment, even the grain of the two pieces of wood, right? Everybody knows this. But the question is when you're mixing and matching wood on a boat restoration, you know, because maybe that's all you have on hand, you're trying to stay within a budget. Well, how do you get everything to kind of look uniform.
From a practical point of view, you have two options when you're considering restoring your boat teak. The first one is you leave the teak bare. You leave the teak bare, it's natural, you don't finish it, you just keep it clean and let it kind of turn a beautiful silver gray. But this won't work if you have any sort of different species or age or even stained wood.
Yeah, we all like to go natural when we're in the south of France and we're hanging out on a private beach.
Ooh la la.
But I'm going to tell you, there's a problem with letting your teak just kind of weather on its own and turn beautiful silver and be all natural. The problem is that over time, the grain becomes exposed in the teak. And as you clean it, as you sand it down, as you try to keep it going, it can begin to split or crack, and then you're not going to be able to do anything.
The second option involves applying some sort of a varnish, a sealer, or a stain to the wood so that it takes on a little bit darker appearance that kind of stays the same over a lengthy period of time. The process that I'm going to be explaining is one that I've used for over 30 years on a variety of different sailboats. It allows me to take a piece of otherwise unsightly teak and turn it into something beautiful, all in under 10 man-hours of work, and then the finish will last from 12 to 18 months.
What? There's no way.
If you don't like doing woodwork, this is the teak restoration method for you. Motor City Boat Werks has no sponsors. I get no compensation from any of the products or the items that I talk about on my channel. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Spread the word about Motor City Boat Werks. The wood product I use is almost exclusively Sikkens Cetol Marine. Nowadays, it comes in 4 different types. This product is kind of a cross between a translucent stain, a preservative, a sealer, and also a little bit of a varnish. Now, what's the difference between these? Well, that's a detailed discussion we'll have in maybe another episode. But for my purposes, I tend to use the Cetol Marine Natural Teak as a base coat on the wood and then finishing it off with the Cetol Marine Gloss as a top coat. This product has some advantages over, say, a traditional spar varnish.
In the episode on the teak repair, I showed you firsthand exactly why I think this product is so great. Be sure to check it out.
It's very quick and easy to apply. It hides imperfections in old teak very well. It's very easy to make spot repairs if the wood ever becomes damaged. It's a hard and durable finish, and it lasts in excess of 12 months.
Nevertheless, there are some salty dogs who are really opposed to Cetol. They feel like it muddies the color of the wood, it makes it too dark or maybe too orange. They often complain that over time it'll peel up and just create more of a mess. But I have to tell you, if this product is applied properly to a clean surface, it'll give you months and months of great service, sometimes well beyond what the manufacturer recommends. Again, if you're doing a Concord finish on some exotic wooden boat, perhaps this is not the choice for you. But for those of us who are just trying to make an old sailboat look good, Cetol is a great option.
The first step to restoring any teak is to make sure it's clean. Now, there's all sorts of commercial teak cleaning products that they have out there, but I'm going to tell you from my experience that I've had limited success using some of these products, especially when the wood is this far gone. These commercial teak cleaning products are for unfinished wood. They're not for wood that's already been varnished or stained or sealed in some way. For my purposes, I often use the same cleaning products that I use to scrub down the boat. Simple Green is a great choice. There's no way around it. Old boat teak has to be sanded. You don't have to take off a lot of material, but you do need to get through the top layer, which may be dirty or stained, and try and get down to some of the natural wood. I like to start with about 60 or 80 grit sandpaper, but I don't apply a lot of pressure with my palm sander as I try to take off the top layer of material. Right away, you'll be able to tell the quality of the wood and get an idea if anything is damaged or cracked. After After sanding with the coarser sandpaper, I then switched to 150 grit, kind of smooth everything out. Now later on, as I apply layers of finish to the wood, I'll use 220 and maybe even get even finer. But at this stage, it's just to kind of open up the pores of the wood and kind of have a clean surface to start the refinishing. Just like fiberglass, teak dust is one of those things that will irritate your respiratory system, so make sure you wear a mask while you're doing your sanding.
Now, I know there are some salty dogs out there. They like to mock me for using my $29 Black & Decker palm sander.
He's one half of the paint train, Sweet Beat 16.
They feel like I should be using a $500 Festool. Well, let me tell you, good luck with that. If you ever tried to hold one of those heavier palm sanders, almost impossible to do any sort of delicate work. And you definitely can't use this light technique that I'm using to clean up these pieces of teak. This is one of the things that makes this little palm sander so great, is that you can use it for quite a period of time before your hand gets tired. It's light enough that you can really control it and go ahead and clean up a teak surface. So these are the steps for the Skipper 20 sailboat, and what I wanted to show you was, take a look here. You can see how this is kind of damaged here, and it almost looks like the finish is peeling up here, right? Now this is probably Sikkens Cetol Marine, and one of the complaints that people make is that with age it will peel up like this and create these kind of sharp slivers of varnish or whatever coming off of here. And what I'm going to tell you is that if your wood is starting to peel like that, well, that's an age issue. That has to do with this not being recoated properly, and the wood is actually shrinking and coming away from the finish that's on here. The simple solution is to go ahead and touch this up with Cetol, but in this case we're going to clean it all down to a nice clean surface, and then we're going to refinish it from scratch. Don't let people talk you out of using Seaall Marine just because they're afraid that it's going to somehow chip up and come up after the fact. That's a sign that the wood hasn't been cared for or treated properly.
Now is the time to fix any pieces of broken teak. I covered this before in my teak repair video.
So we're going to glue this piece together here. What we've done is we mixed up some West Systems epoxy, and I added a little bit of teak dust to it. Gives it a little bit of a kind of a natural wood color. You don't want to put too much in there because you don't want it to get too coarse. Now, this would not be for a structural item, but for a piece of trim like this, that's going to pretty much be out of the way. That's not how you do it. Too aggressive. The nice thing about this crack is the grain will kind of pull it together.
Once the wood is sanded, it's time to apply the base coat.
One of the things I want to show you is that all this wood, this is all teak here with the exception of this piece, but you'll notice that there are different shades here. And this is due to the wood, perhaps when it was cut, perhaps some of it has been exposed to the elements and so the grain's opened up a little bit more. It doesn't quite look the same. Even two pieces that are milled the same at the time of production, well, now one is dark and one is light. No idea why. You can see the actual grain is showing through here. And one of the reasons I like Sikkens Cetol is that it kind of blends everything together. You'll have natural shades of different stuff, but oftentimes it kind of just ties everything together. So here's how we do this. Shake up your can. Now, a lot of people will apply this stuff from the can, and I'm going to tell you the problem is that, you know, it might take you 20-30 minutes to do all these pieces. That entire time, this can is open, and it's, you know, the solvents are evaporating, and you get a lip on the top here. It'll dry out. You don't want to do that. So what I always do is pour it into a little cup, and then close the can back up. Because this stuff is not cheap. It'll run you about $30, $40 for this little can here. And while you can do a lot of wood with one little can like this, it sucks if you have to buy another one because they're kind of expensive. So what we want to do is close this back up. I always do this in my dirty shop clothes because this stuff is messy. It tends to splatter. So, this is the base coat. It gives it the teak color here. This is like a clear gloss that goes over the top of that, really brings out the luster. I usually do 2 or 3 coats of this one, and then I switch, and I'll end up doing 1 or 2 coats of this as the final coats. So one of the things is we don't use the brush like this. What we do is we use the brush like this. This way we can kind of force the material kind of into the grains of the wood. I mean, I guess you could probably use a rag doing this, but I find that I like using the brush primarily because I can go back overwards at the end and take off any pooling or runs. See how I'm holding I hold the foam brush like this. It really allows me to kind of force it into the grain here. Yeah, you can judge. How does it look? Step back. Kind of fit this here. Now, here's what I want to show you here. So this is a piece of teak that I previously had put Sikkens Cetol on. It was a batten for something on one of my other boat projects. I cut it to use it as the riser for the barrel boats. And so you can see the Cetol that's on here right now. See, that finish is on there. This is bare wood. This is the finish that was originally put on there. It's scuffed up now because I sanded it. Watch what happens when I go back over this now. Yeah, it's a little darker on the end grain there, but you can see, look, it blends seamlessly. I showed this in the other video. And this, from a maintenance point of view, is what makes this product so good. It makes it great for the do-it-yourselfer. You get pretty good finish end result for the time that you put in on it. It's a lazy man's way of having decent-looking wood. There's no excuse for having bad-looking wood when you have a product like this. It's very easy to use and gives you pretty good results. All right, see what that looks like? You gotta make your teak look sexy. I'll go back through and do all these pieces. Because eventually it becomes a lesson in just putting coats on. Every day, put a coat on. By the end of the week, you'll have finished all your wood. You can set it aside until it's ready to be put back on the boat. People who want to suggest that varnishing is better, I just don't think they're being honest insofar as the effort that it takes and the end results that you get, and you know, the time, the money, the effort. If you're doing a boat restoration project where you intend on using the boat, it's going to have you want the wood to look good, but you don't want to break the bank or spend a tremendous amount of time. There's no question this is the way to go. I can't imagine anybody would.
The final step in the process is to apply the top coat gloss.
At this point with the wood, we've got 3 coats of the natural teak base coat on all of the pieces of wood here. This is teak, this piece is mahogany, These are teak from inside the Alden. It's at this stage that we begin to start sanding with 220 grit sandpaper between the coats that we put down. All right, let's start with this one here. All right, so this is what it looks like. This has 3 coats of Cetol base coat on here, the natural teak. And what we're gonna do is we just wanna bring it down a little bit. So we use 220, it's a worn piece, and we lightly sand it. I'm not trying to take off much wood, I'm just trying to dull it up. And the high spots will come right down and they'll kind of roll up. See? See that? That's what it looks like there. All right, that's what you're taking off. You're taking off just the very top layer of the Cetol on there. And what's happening is each successive coat of Cetol that we put on here is filling the grain of the wood so that when we get to our final coat with the gloss top coat, well, everything is really going to kind of pop and be nice and shiny. We're just lightly taking it down. We're not trying to take off too much wood. See how this stuff comes up? See this? All right, that's what we're gonna wanna, that's what we wanna get. We wanna get to that. That's a good sign right there. We'll vacuum all this up at the end before we put the next coat. Take a look at this end. You can actually feel it. You can see the texture is actually quite rough. Well, that's what the 220 is for. We're bringing it down a little bit. Look, come in here, see if you can get it on here. See this here? Look at that. See how it kind of, I don't know what you call it, rolls up? Look how the finish rolls up. Can you see that? Especially this side here. Watch this one here. See the pieces? That's what you want. Okay. All right. So we take that down. This is what it looks like. Now this has a different sort of appearance than the other stuff does. The other stuff almost looks like a stain. This, you know, if I had to say, this is not quite a varnish. It's more like a shellac almost in its thickness and color properties. Even its smell kind of is very similar. So, all right, so at about 2 or 3 coats of base coat on here, this is what we're using for the base coat. We're gonna switch now and go to the gloss top coat, right? This has a UV inhibitor in it. It's nice and glossy. It's designed to be put over these base coats. And in fact, if you use this by itself, you run the risk of this peeling up on its own because it needs something to really kind of attach to chemically and physically. That's what the purpose of the base coat is. In the old days, there was just one type of Cetol. It was called Cetol Marine, and kind of everything was combined into one. Now they've broken it out. They still have the original, but they have these other ones that you use these as a base coat. It gives kind of a satin to a flat finish, similar to what you see here, but then you go back, you put the gloss in, gives it that nice shine. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do at least two coats of top coat. I might even do 3. We'll see how it looks. On the pieces that are gonna be exterior, which none of these are all interior, I sometimes will go 3 or 4 top coats of the gloss to really kind of build up that finish. So it's plenty durable. But on the interior, this is gonna receive very minimal UV, and it's gonna last for years to come. I think just maybe 2 coats, 3 coats, we'll see how it looks if it gives us the finish we like. It really depends on how things sand down. From this point forward, we put on a coat, we do the light sand, just like I showed you. We put on a coat, we do a light sand, we generally put another coat, we leave it be.
As I get closer to the final top coat, now is the time to make sure that there's no drips or runs. You really have to pay attention to the details. Let's do a summary of my efforts so far. It took 4 hours of prep to clean and sand the wood. It took 3 base coats at 30 minutes apiece, and another 3 top coats also at 30 minutes apiece. The sanding between the final coats was another 3 sessions at 20 minutes apiece. All total, restoring this sailboat wood took just 8 man-hours. Now, it took more than a week for everything to dry, but it was just a few minutes every day to keep this project going.
Restoring old teak is a great project to do on the side when you have other projects that are maybe taking a little longer in the shop. You can see behind me the headliner project. I'm right in the middle of working through all the details to get that done. Being able to do the wood on the side, we still make progress on the sailboat, and it gives us something to do while we're waiting for larger projects to get done. Now, I'll be back in a couple of weeks with another episode about building and restoring some nice teak steps for the Skipper 20. The wood will eventually go back into the boat and be reassembled, but we'll save that for another time down the road. I want to put in a simple electrical system into the sailboat, and I want to do a really good cleaning on the headliner. If you're new to the channel, be sure to check out my playlist. There's a lot of information that can be transferred from a trawler project to a sailboat project. I hope you enjoyed this episode and got something out of it. I want to thank you for stopping by. We'll see you next time. Stay motivated.
If you like these videos, please hit the subscribe button. These videos would not be possible without your support.